SaaS Therapy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of SaaS Therapy, the show where we help you save your most important business relationships, your customers. I am your host, Todd Kirk. I'm joined by my co-host, Casey Trujillo, and we are pumped today to have on Kelly Hall, who is the Chief Customer Officer at QuickBase, and she is currently designing a customer journey that focuses on a full experience that ensures value is delivered at every stage. Kelly has spent 25 years in the tech industry, 19 of them working with technology providers, specializing in creating and leading the engagement strategy between brands and customers, and creating a 360-degree view of the customer experience at large B2B technology companies. Prior to joining QuickBase, Kelly served as Vice President of Cisco's CS&A organization. She has also held leadership positions with CA Technologies, Vision Critical, Malwarebytes, and BMC Software. Kelly, welcome to SaaS Therapy. We are pumped to have you on today.
Thanks, Todd. I'm happy to be here.
Now, Todd, I got to tell you why I'm so excited to have Kelly. So this is going to be awesome to our audience, and Todd will get a good giggle out of this because he knows me really well. So, Kelly, first, I want you to give some background about QuickBase. What is QuickBase? If I haven't heard of QuickBase, what is that organization? Define a little bit more about what your role there is. But then I want you to talk about, Kelly, how working at McDonald's has shaped your career to get you to the point where you're at. So Todd, I did my research on Kelly, and she said that she worked at a McDonald's drive-thru, and I was like, I teared up. I started crying. I'm like, this is my soul person for
so
work.
Close to your heart.
It's close to my heart because I'm a health nut, but I'll tell you
It's
what,
true.
if there is a quarter pounder cheeseburger, large fry, large Diet Coke, and a chocolate sundae, I'm in. It doesn't matter what I'm trying to accomplish. Like, I have time for that. So Kelly, give us a little bit background around QuickBase, your role there, and tell them a little bit about how McDonald's kind of shaped you a little bit.
Oh, that's so funny. Happy to. So yes, I joined QuickBase in August of last year as the Chief Customer Officer, responsible really for what we're now calling customer experience, and that includes our customer success team, tech support, professional services, education, and it's really around focusing on our customer, focusing on value realization for our customer. And so they had a great program before I joined, and now we're really focusing on maturity and optimizing to, again, make sure not just my organization in CX, but the entire company is putting the customer at the center of what we do, which we all say we do. And sometime putting that into practice and then measuring to ensure that we're putting the customer at the center of everything we do is really the vital part. That's how we know we're having a positive impact. So QuickBase is, I'll be honest with you, before I came to QuickBase, I had never heard of QuickBase. And started in the interview process, and I we don't download anymore. I got a demo environment. And I was like, man, oh man, where has this product been my entire life? Because we are a low-code, no-code platform, which, you say that and it's like, well, what does that mean? And so, the core of our customers are really trying to operationalize their business. They don't need a Salesforce, but maybe they need a CRM. We have worked with a lot of field service management organizations, so they need to dispatch people. So they need a mobile component and they need a place to keep the data. But ultimately, it is a platform that allows you to solve your business needs, really around operational business needs, without having to be the square peg that's trying to fit in, to a round hole of an SAP or some other, managed package application out there. And listen, I started my career after McDonald's. I was technical, but it's been about 30 years since I've been technical. And for somebody like me to get a demo environment and be able to actually, the first thing I did was build out a risk remediation tracker. Because I was like, okay, this is always a bit of a gap unless you have one of the big tools out there. And I did it in under an hour. And I thought, how powerful is this? And this is somebody with no coding experience. And if you do have coding experience, you can even make it more complex to your environment. And so we are out there solving the problems. Really, our customers range from SMB through commercial size to enterprise to large strategic accounts. but we are really out there understanding the outcomes that our customers need to achieve, and then curating the solution, to support really operationalizing their business and allowing them to be more efficient. And so it's really powerful. It's been an incredible journey the last 9 months. I could not be happier.
I had the pleasure this year, Kelly, of getting to go to QuickBase's annual Empower conference, and I listened to your keynote there, and I remember you standing on stage and saying, "We want to put the customer at the center," and I loved your whole presentation because it was all built around this idea of how to put the customer first, and you demonstrated that really well in everything about that approach. So I just want to give you kudos there. But maybe to help our audience understand what you mean by that, like when you say put the customer at the center, what does that actually look like? Because I think everyone would probably totally agree with you, but I think a lot of organizations do that as lip service. And I feel like the way you demonstrated that, you were trying to say, like, we're putting our money where our mouth is, and here's all the ways that we're actually doing that. So what for you does putting the customer at the center look like?
Yeah. And so it's a great question. And, I'll start at the highest level. I'm a CCO. I sit on an ELT. We're privately owned. So we have a board. We have, a PE firm that we have to answer to. And that comes down to numbers, right? What's our retention? What's our expansion? What's our margin on services? And so my approach has always been is I know I have to meet those numbers, right? And that's kind of in the background. When I look at coming into a business and doing the analysis to understand where we are, I actually look at it first and foremost from the customer perspective, understanding any gaps we may have. And I actually look and really focus on, as a support person, as a CSM, what's the experience we want them to have? That's my end state. And then I work backwards to make the numbers work, if that makes sense. And so, for an example, when I started, we weren't covering all of our customers with any type of CSM motion, right? And so there was a little digital that was happening. We had CSMs on some accounts, but I knew we were losing touch with our customers. We weren't having like the ongoing regular conversation. And when I say that, it's not about us. It's about how are we presenting them new product enhancements that are coming out to make sure we can bring more value. How are we looking holistically at what their support cases have been to identify, maybe they need some education. Maybe we need to make an investment and spend some time with them and teach them about a particular feature. And so for me, it's always designed, like you design with the end in mind, and starting with that, every answer and to every question we should be asking should be from the customer's perspective. Like, what's in it for them? That is something that I have said forever. If you're reaching out to a customer with an email, can you say what's in it for them? Are they going to read this and say this brings value? And so for me, we always hit our numbers, or we always strive to hit our numbers. That is the core. We have to run a business, but we can strike the balance between it being, us driving a retention number. But how do we do that? We do that by making sure they're getting value, and that what they are spending, the value surpasses the amount of investment they're making. And so putting the customer, at the center for me is really coming back to every decision that we make. We need to be asking, what's in it for the customer? Are we doing the work? Are we doing the engagement? Are we reaching out? Are we sending the information that is actually going to bring them value, not us? And I think that's where a lot of companies kind of get confused, where we all say, oh, we're customer-centric, but are you really? Because I've gone into organizations where we're pushing for a meeting because we need to know if their customer's going to renew. Right. We should be pushing for a meeting to understand if the customer feels like they're getting the value. It's not about us. And when you change that dynamic with the customer and they truly believe you are invested, and you can't fake that, then they're more honest, they're more transparent. You start finding out what's bothering them. You start finding out what's not working for them. And then you address that. You address it tactically, and then you look at it from a root cause perspective to say, are other customers getting it? And then you try and address it holistically.
So, Kelly, I'm gonna ask some follow up questions off of that, and I think I know part of the answer because people that know you. So, shout out to my guy Roger Mendez,
Love
and to
Roger.
other people that know you. That they're almost. And again, I don't want to be a fanboy over you, Kelly, but it seems like these disciples of yours, they think the same way, that they're always people centric. When you
Mm-hmm.
talk to them, they're I mean, you're like, why are you asking me so many questions about me? Like, I should be asking questions about you. How do you convince this large ship? Because you've been at a lot of big organizations. How do you get people to believe that mindset? How do you get them to believe in that, to where that just becomes natural? It's not forced, it's natural. Give the audience some tips and how you've been able to do that, because the people that
Yeah.
know you, that I know, think like you, act like you, talk like you. So how did you get it done? Help us out here.
Lead by example.
Mm.
And I don't know a better way to say it. And again, you know, if you are in any kind of post sales value realization role and you actually don't care about that, you're in the wrong job. I'm sorry. You're in the wrong job, because it's not something that you can fake. And so when I come into an organization, whether it was when I was at Cisco or now at QuickBase, my first priority is actually the people and understanding the individual. Without our customers, we have no business. Without our employees, we have no business. These folks are employees 8 to 5. Sometimes it's 8 to 8. But if we actually don't take the time to understand the human, the father, the mother, the brother, the sister, the fiance, how can you actively work to develop them? And how can you inspire them if you don't understand? And so, you know, coming in, it's always about, my first questions are not about what's going on in the business. It's like, tell me about you. And I tell them, like, you can share as much or as little as you want, but I do care. And I'm really diligent about taking notes, just because sometimes you have teams of 1,400 or 200, and sometimes you forget the details. But I always start with, and usually my first meeting is just about them. It's not about the business, because I need to understand who you are and what you strive to be, and are you doing work you love? And I always ask the same question over and over: what fuels your professional soul? And because they could be a CSM, but what maybe fuels their soul is being a trainer. And they get a little bit of that in, being a CSM, because you're educating and enabling. But for me, that's like, okay, next time I have a spot in education, I'm going to reach out to this person and see if they're interested. And it's really kind of that, it's that basic. And then I follow up, and the next time I talk to them, I'm like, how is the soccer game? How are your kids? Not because it's the right thing to do, but because I care. And when you invest in people, when you invest in your employees, which is our biggest investment in business, but also our most powerful, they will then go and invest in their customers. And so for me, it's walking the talk and putting action, where your words are. And I think a lot of people, and I know I struggled with it. I had more leadership training over the last 30 years. I could open this closet. You will see every, like, Myers-Briggs, every 4-box, right? Because I've gone through every leadership development program. I was petrified to be human as I grew in the ranks. I was petrified, to talk about my kids. I was petrified to talk about my weekend, because I didn't think that was professional, especially as a woman in tech that's been in tech for so long. And I finally had a great coach. His name was Brett, and he was like, "You be you be authentic, and you be you." And by letting that guard down, I had the realization that I was worried about me. And then it dawned on me, every employee is worried about their boss. And so even in my town halls, at QuickBase, I'll do any one-on-one with anybody in my organization at any time. I don't believe in hierarchy until it hits the fan, right? And then maybe we have to put some hierarchy in place. But, I think when you truly care about the people you're working with and you're truly invested in the human, they feel like it's okay to truly invest in their customers and what they're doing. And it's kind of like this, this follow-on effect that happens. And, I still, reach out, to employees from 25 years ago to check in. I'm still invested in them as a human, probably not as often as I should. But, that's not something that you can fake. And it goes the same for our customers. Like I have had, and Todd said he was at the Empower event, I had to have a real honest conversation in a keynote about some things we weren't doing really great. But I also knew that if I didn't acknowledge it, I would never gain the trust of our customers. And in all my years of doing this, it was my most vulnerable professional moment by far. And it could have gone one way or the other. It could have blown up. And it could have been, you acknowledge there were issues. This is why I'm going to churn. Or it could have, it could be like, thank you for acknowledging it. But it was the most vulnerable I've ever been. And fortunately, so far, knock on wood, it hasn't blown up on me. But I think us as professionals and as leaders, showing vulnerability, being invested in the human, that carries forward. So well, it doesn't always work. It's definitely gotten me in trouble at times. I'm not going to lie. But Casey, back to your original question, my McDonald's, my addiction holds true on McDonald's Diet Coke because it's crispy. And so
it's so good.
I knew we were doing this, and so I hit it, but I just want to.
Oh, so good. I can attest, Casey is a health nut, and the only unhealthy food he eats is McDonald's. But he loves it. He loves it so much. It's
Give
crazy.
me a good crispy McDonald's Diet Coke, and it's like I could rule the world.
Oh, so good.
That's all I need.
Yeah, we'll put that on that'll be my quote. That'll be my takeaway. How Kelly will plan to take over the world.
Yeah.
So, on speaking of taking over the world, though, one of the things that I'm curious of, and maybe this is hard to pinpoint, but I would really love to know, like, obviously, anytime you step into any organization, especially as coming into a new organization in a leadership role, there's going to be scenarios where there's a lot of baggage, there's a lot of trauma and pain that people maybe have gone through, and we're trying to fix that. You mentioned there's a lot of vulnerability and human element that needs to come out of that, and ultimately you're hoping that that's going to translate into your customer-centric model too, right? So there's a big cultural shift that needs to happen. I'm curious, is it possible to pinpoint moments where you've seen the tipping point? Like, what are the things that you look for to feel like this is working and we are changing and we are growing and we are moving in the right direction?
Yeah. And honestly, we have done so much here at QuickBase in the last 9 months, and it's not just me. I came into an incredible team, and so they just needed somebody to really remove the obstacles for them, right? And ultimately, that's what my job is. There are way smarter people that work for me. My job is to remove the obstacles, and you do. I mean, even here at QuickBase, we saw the tipping point, but there is this fear when a new leader comes in of like, what are they going to do, especially in this day and age? Like, is there going to be a layoff? Are they going to be mad? Are they going to be judging everything? Are they, and for me, this is where, I think the number one skill for leadership, it's not like understanding finance or P&L. It's about emotional intelligence, right? And I tell everybody that I meet, if you have not read Emotional Intelligence 2.0, go get it and reread it. It's on my shelf right back there. I go through it. There's 2 books I go through every year. But that emotional intelligence is so important, especially in the beginning. And this is whether you're going into a new job with employees or a customer. And it's listening with an empathetic ear, and it's listening to hear, not to respond.
Yeah.
And because people are going to be nervous, especially if they're employees, or you may have an upset customer, right? And they're like somebody else, and now I have to explain myself to somebody else, and how are you going to fix it any better than the other person did? Or maybe it's, I loved that person, and you're never going to be as good as they are, right? And so for me, I think we all have to listen to hear, one, and not to judge, and do it with empathy. And if you do that consistently, and again, people can call BS. So if you don't mean it, they'll know. But if you do that consistently, if you empathize with the situation instead of pointing fingers, if you acknowledge the fact to a customer, Mr. Customer, I know you've had 5 CSMs in the last 2 years. I'm very sorry about that. Like, here's what we're doing from a business. Like, tell the customer, the journey we're going through, but I want to help you. And I'm going to make sure it's documented so nobody, asks you again, like own up, acknowledge what's there, be empathetic to their situation, and don't judge. And for me, doing that consistently, like coming in as a CCO and doing that with consistency, I started to see probably around the 6-week mark here that people started to believe me. And I don't blame them. Like, we shouldn't, like I tell my kids, like, don't trust everybody, right? They're, like, you want to know who they are. Stranger danger is the thing. And so, I also come into a business with my employees or with my customers, fully acknowledging I have to earn their trust. I don't expect it to be given to me because there's a C in my title.
Yeah.
I have to earn that trust. I have to work as hard as they do. I won't ask them to do any job I wouldn't do myself. Now, there gets to a point in your career where is the financial benefit for the employees and the companies in the organization. Does it make sense for me to be in doing individual contributor work? No, I should be removing those obstacles. Doesn't mean I wouldn't do it if I didn't have to. Like, if the business didn't need it. And so, Todd, like, I know is super long-winded, but I think you have to show up consistently every day. And, customers or employees, the one thing is setting expectations and delivering. And sometimes, when that expectation delivery date is there, the response is, I don't have the answer yet. I don't want you to, think I forgot about you. I'm still working on it. Here's the next date, whatever that may be. And it's that pure consistency. And coming into it from really being emotionally intelligent, you have no idea what went on before you got there. You have no idea what that customer is going through. You have no idea the internal pressures. So go in, not judging, but go in because you care and you want to make their lives, their job, their day-to-day better.
Kelly, I want to double down on that. And I was listening to Brene Brown, and one of the things that she mentioned is why emotional intelligence is so important is because for the first time in a generation, people are actually starting to pay attention to their emotions.
Yeah.
So when you practice emotional intelligence, you ask questions to the person, that person's probably walking themselves through the emotion for the first time. And they're actually getting more insights why they're giving you the answer back if you're doing it with an empathetic ear.
Yeah.
And then that allows them to usually solve their own problems, right? But it's practicing that and giving grace to the person over there, saying you're probably walking yourself through your emotions for the first time while I'm asking you these questions. So I love that. Couldn't agree more with that. Kelly, you talked about, okay, we are looking at reinvesting and making sure we have those touch points, more customer success managers.
Yep.
In a time where others are scaling back. So why the belief in hiring or continuing to have customer success when the tailwinds are saying, no, we're actually cutting ours away? I know one of the largest software vendors out there, they eliminated all of their customer success managers. Now they repurposed them in some other roles, but they actually even got rid of the role. So give us some of the feedback of why you're doing what you're doing.
So for me, particularly at QuickBase, the capabilities and opportunities on our platform is endless. And so, it is very product specific in my mind. I always think you need to have a curated journey for your customer. Some of them, like say if you're in cybersecurity, right? Less, let's say customization opportunity. It's more configuration. What am I turning on? What am I turning off? What's my endpoint reading? What's it not, right? So in something like cybersecurity, you may actually be able to move to more of a digital motion, right? More AI driven. But when you're working with a tool like ours, the art of the possible is really hard to articulate with an email, right? And so I do think it really is specific to the product that you're supporting. Now, don't get me wrong, we are investing in all kinds of AI here. We have some new tools that we're rolling out because I want to get better at what we're doing. I want to, the whole point of customer success and really CX is to get in a proactive state, right? And so you know what's going to happen before the customer does. You can, the predictive analytics are smart enough and intelligent enough to be warning indicators before the customer is running into a problem. But it is the art of the possible. I mean, I have seen our customers do some of the most incredible things on our platform, and some is so diverse. And there's a couple things going on. There are macroeconomic pressures right now, right? Everybody has to do less with more, which means scaling back their technology spend as well. And so if you have QuickBase licenses and you have them for your organization or a subset, and you're trying to scale back, and we have, we go through it as well. I'm sure you guys do with your own internal tech stack. If I have just an AI or a digital journey happening and not a human talking to them to really understand their business, we have no ability to help them to achieve their outcomes beyond whatever their use case is with QuickBase, right? And so it's like, okay, you're having these pressures. You also have a ticketing system. Well, building a ticketing app in QuickBase is hours, not days, not, right? And so for me, our CSMs really need to be there to help our customers get more value by forming that piece of art into more than just the possible, but something that delivers an outcome. And so, again, I think it's, really depends on your product. But for us, if we can have, and having CSMs on any account, it's balancing cost, right? Because it's an investment. We don't charge for our CSMs. It's an investment we're making in our customers. And there's such great tech out there now to help you do that you can do it really efficiently and still keep that human connection. So the customer feels like they are invested in, and so we can look to continually grow the value that they're receiving.
Okay, Kelly. So it sounds like you would say that some of the characteristics that you look for in a really good CS person or CS approach is, one, somebody who's proactive; two, somebody who's creative and visionary and willing to meet the customer and help them catch a vision of what's possible. What else is there? What else would you say? Like, it's interesting because we've had a lot of conversations with CS leaders over the last couple of years, and there's this tension that I at least have seen a lot, where it's like, we don't know if we want the CSM to focus on like selling and renewing and acting more like a revenue driver versus a adoption and trainer and enablement resource. And so when you think about like the key characteristics that you look for in making a CSM who can really be impactful, I hear a couple of things, right? Proactive, creative, really, really good at meeting the customer and teaching them the art of the possible. But what else would you put in there as like what you really want to see out of your CS program?
Yeah, so excuse me. For me, for CSMs, there's two primary qualities that I look for in every CSM, and if they're not there, it's just not going to happen for me. One is EQ. It's that emotional intelligence. That is because I can teach anybody the tech. We can teach anybody a product. I can teach anybody a success plan, right? But you have to have that emotional intelligence where you can read the room when you're with your customer, where you can be empathetic to a situation, but still, be able to drive forward. The second, and is as important as EQ, is curiosity. And somehow I feel like we have lost the art of curiosity in the last decade. I don't know if it's like the devices that have done it to us, but and just having data fed to us, but being really curious and enough to ask the questions and investing the time and doing that in an emotionally intelligent way. Those are the two most important things. I have hired nurses as CSMs. I have hired teachers. For me, it's not even so much like the tech background. It's about the personality and how you you want to care, and your ability to be inquisitive. Like a lot of our customers don't have time. There's not a customer. I'm a customer of many products. I don't have time to try and figure things out on my own. So I need somebody to lead me through the journey. Like if you're, my vendor, you're the expert. I'm not. I know that. Lead the conversation. Ask the questions, But then if you're going to take my time to be curious and ask those questions, then do something with it. Come back to me with an expectation. And so, the emotional intelligence and the curiosity, and then you really, really, really so important. I don't want to say PM skills, but if you cannot deliver to an expectation, I'm a list person as well. I have lists everywhere. If it's not on a list, won't get done. I can see 4 lists right now just around my desk. So clearly I'm not that organized, because they should probably be in one list. But the follow through. And, follow through is so important because, we try and make these things so complex. It's tech, it's difficult. No, man, just be human. Be human. Care about somebody, care enough to take the time to ask the questions, and then do the follow through. We are all, I don't care if you're a vendor, a customer, we're all just humans. If you had a friendship and somebody wasn't emotionally intelligent and was just, not sensitive to what you were going through, if it's a friendship and I never asked hey, Casey, I don't care how you are. Let me tell you how I'm doing. Right? If I said, hey, Casey, I'm going to set up dinner when you're in town because, man, it's been a long time since we've seen each other. And then I just ghost you. How are you going to feel about that relationship?
Right.
It's no different in business. Right. And so it's really for me, it's these key fundamentals. It's not, don't get me wrong. We're a build platform. So that understanding our technology is vitally important for our CSMs, our professional services, our support folks. That's the easy part. The ability to establish a relationship like you would with a friend, with a customer or a coworker. That is what I'm looking for when I'm hiring CSMs. And Todd, I'm not sure if that's the answer you wanted, but it really is that fundamental for me.
I wasn't fishing for anything, Kelly. That was awesome. So
now, if anyone goes and looks on LinkedIn and looks up Kelly and sees her accomplishments, you're going to see a lot. Kelly, do you believe? And you made mention of this at sometime in this podcast about being a woman in tech. Do you believe the way that you got to the positions where you've been is kind of maybe shaped that of these are your criteria? Have you noticed that's where you got 100%. To? I think I read an interview where you said, I again, correct me if I'm wrong here, that you didn't get a college degree. You're a woman in tech, and now you're the CCO of QuickBase, and you were at Cisco, and you were in the same level. I don't think people understand the level of effort that you put in to get to where you're at and all the obstacles. So did that shape a little
100%.
bit of those 3 principles and talk a little bit to that?
I had some of the crappiest leaders early in my career. I'm not going to lie. I had a boss very early on in my career. And again, thank God for evolution. Thank God for cultural evolution. Thank God for us, being more aware of humans. Thank God for women being accepted more in tech than it was when I started, 30 years ago. But one of my first real professional jobs, I thought I had made it in the big time, corporate America, first job, my boss in every team meeting called me the uneducated one. That's how he addressed me. He didn't call my name. He didn't say Kelly. He didn't say Ms. McMahon, because with my maiden name, this was 30 years ago. He would say, give it to the uneducated one. I kid you not. I got people that I still know back from that time that can substantiate that. And even back then, it was a big company, and going to HR was is that really is that really that bad? I don't fault the HR folks. It was kind of the time. I mean, he was just a jerk. I'll say that. I fault him. But one of the things, and it's funny because I was just writing new job descriptions, and our standard job descriptions say like required 4-year degree, and I take it out. Take it out because, some of the most impressive people I've worked with in my career also don't have college degrees. And I did not say that out loud until about 10 years ago because I was so embarrassed, and I could be sitting at a dinner table or in a conference room and people would start talking about their alma maters and where they went to college, and I would excuse myself. I had to go to the bathroom. I had to make a call because the level of fear that paralyzed me because I didn't have, and I'm like, people knew when they hired me, obviously, but it's like, oh, if this gets out, never mind. Am I a female in tech, especially so long ago, where it was not a nice place to be. Someday I'll write a book about some of the things that I have seen and experienced. Some are hysterical. Most I can laugh at today, but my fear of being outed for not having a degree, like literally was debilitating. And so, yeah, it has 100% made me a more empathetic leader because I don't look at, I got it. If you're a lawyer, you have to have a JD. What we do, some of the best developers I've met have never gone to college, right? And I do think there is, it's funny because I heard, I've had 4 bosses that have used the same word about me over and over, like either in like a conversation or when they've introduced me. And I think a lot of this comes from how I grew up and that I moved out at a very young age on my own, which did not allow me to go to college. And every single one of them described me as scrappy. And at first I was like, I'm not sure if that's like a good or bad thing. Now I just own it. Like at this age, I don't care. I just own it. But I think there is, for a lot of folks that didn't go to college, there is an underlying fear of failure. And so we will always work a little harder than the next guy, right? Like a little longer, go the extra mile because I know I can speak for myself. I didn't have that piece of paper to fall back on. And so I was going to work hard. I was going to be a little scrappier than the others. And so, yeah, that 100% is applicable because if somebody didn't give me a chance, even that guy that used to call me the uneducated one, and even how he hired me was a debacle. That's a whole other podcast. But yeah, that's like an unfiltered podcast about that. That guy, as much to this day as when I hear his name or I think of him, I get infuriated. That guy still hired me. He was the one who hired me. And so whether it was as a joke, whether it was, whatever, he got my foot in the door in corporate America. And for that, I will always be grateful because all I needed was somebody to give me a chance. And then, I screwed up a lot along the way. I've made a lot of mistakes in my career. But I made the most of every opportunity that I had, and it was because somebody gave me a chance. And if we can give somebody a chance because they don't have that piece of paperwork, I don't really care. How are you going to show up for your customers? How are you going to show up for your peers? How are you going to show up for your employees? That's what I care about. That's what I, look and hire based on, not. And the paper is important. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people who put a lot of hard work. It just wasn't in my personal journey. I wish it was. I went and did some great exec ed, as I got older, which a board member told me to go do because I had to lose the chip off my shoulder. And it was the best advice that I got. But a lot of people put a lot of great work, and I'm in awe. It just wasn't my path. And I think we all, as we get older, have to, work hard for ourselves, like not give up on our dreams because of something from 30 years ago.
Yeah. Kelly, I really, really love that. It's very clear that you are not the uneducated one. And I think there's a great lesson there for so many people to think, well, what when we say education, does that mean a credential or a diploma on the wall, or does that mean someone who's willing to put in the work, someone who's willing to put in the effort? A credential can showcase that maybe you worked hard in the past, but it's no guarantee that you're willing to work hard and put in the effort in the future. And so I love that. I think it's a good memory, or it's a good reminder for everyone to be willing to put forward their best effort to always be curious and always be learning, not just being educated in the past tense, right?
Yeah.
So
it's spot on, Todd.
we this has been an awesome conversation. I have a few other questions that I feel would derail us from this conversation, so I'm going to avoid asking them. And I want to jump into what Casey and I always do as our last question, which I think is just my favorite question ever, right? This is a SaaS therapy show, right? So in any good therapy session, there always has to be some assignment, there has to be some homework, there has to be something that we're going to do different. And so if you could give our audience members, acting as our therapist today, if you could give us one homework assignment of something that we can do to move forward and be better, what would that be?
Oh gosh, yeah. I would definitely start with Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Like, if you have not taken the time to read that as an investment in yourself, never mind, work, as an investment in yourself, your relationships, whether it's, personally or professionally, I would say read the book, listen to the audio, version. It's really important. And I think overall it would be to continue to invest in yourself. Right. And that's what I think we forget a lot of times is, and Casey, I see you on LinkedIn. I know, and you said you're a health nut, like you prioritize eating healthy and staying in shape. What I didn't realize probably until a couple of years ago, how important the self-investment is physically, mentally. And so, whether you're in SaaS or not in SaaS, like as an overall therapist, I would say, like, you can't be a great employee if you're not great to yourself. And I still struggle with this. I'm a mom. My kids are 9 and 13. Like, my ability to invest my time in me is minimal, But, I think that, I know I can't be a great mom. I can't be a great CCO. I can't be a great peer. I can't be a great employee if I am not finding a way to continually invest in myself. And, that's different for everybody. For me, like, it's books. Like, I love reading. And so it's, mentally it's a good book. It's, taking the time to learn something new, right? To keep your mind active and curious. Whether it's self-care in regards to, working out or eating right or going to play pickleball, whatever your jam is. I think, we tend to separate personal and professional a lot. I think just in the business world, we can't be a great professional if we're not feeding the person and the human that we are. And so I know it's SaaS therapy, but that would be SaaS, not SaaS, on-prem. They're not even on-prem anymore. I miss the days of on-prem. Life was so easy with on-prem. It is really about the continual investment in yourself. And we get so busy at work, and we don't take time to take the training or to read the book. You have to carve that out. You really need to ask your leadership to give you that time, to do so. Because if you are not fueling your soul, your professional soul, in whatever ways, your delivery and execution will show it, and you'll feel it. And life's too short for that. We're all just trying to be good humans and do good things in the world, but we got to be good to ourselves first.
Awesome.
Kelly, I think that's a beautiful place to end it. If people want to get in touch with you, follow you, what would you suggest?
Yeah.
Are you active on LinkedIn? What's the right way to follow you?
Yep. And reach out through LinkedIn, email, connect, follow, whatever you would like. I only connect if I know you. Because here's the thing, the most inspiring things and some of the things I learned is on LinkedIn from other people. And so it's happy to connect. I am leaving for India on Sunday, and I do a lot of travel. And so, if it's a little delayed, ask Casey. Don't worry. I always get back to you.
You always do. And Todd, just so you know, my SaaS Therapy challenge for everyone is go get a crispy Diet Coke at McDonald's
Yes.
or a quarter pound cheeseburger. Treat yourself. Like, come on, people.
I
Quarter
might
pounder cheeseburger, add shredded lettuce. Try that next time.
Oh yes,
yeah,
yes.
I may have to do that right after this call. This is not sponsored by McDonald's. We just all really like McDonald's. Kelly,
gentlemen,
thank
this
you.
has been lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Oh,
Kelly.
of course. Thank you so much, Kelly. And we'll let you get back to it. SaaS Therapy is brought to you by Brainstorm, the SaaS platform for SaaS adoption. Learn more at brainstorminc.com.